FBI Director James Comey did a hearing in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he had a back and forth with Republican Senator Ben Sasse, which is a hilarious name. Is it Sass or Sassy? Whatever it is, it's funny. And this was about WikíLeaks. This is what they're talking about here. And it was cringeworthy. So let's watch, and then I'll come back and explain why.
There are clearly members of the IC that have at different points in the past leaked classified information. That is an illegal act, correct?
Correct.
When American journalists court and solicit that information, have they violated any law by asking people in the IC to potentially leak information that is potentially classified?
That conduct is not treated by the U.S. government as criminal conduct. Now, I've been asked in other contexts, isn't it true that the espionage statute has no carve-out for journalists? That's true. But at least in my lifetime, the Department of Justice's view has been news gathering and legitimate news reporting is not covered, is not going to be investigated or prosecuted as a criminal act. That's how it's thought of.
So an investigative reporter taking advantage of and celebrating the liberties that we have under the First Amendment at the Washington Post or at the Omaha World Herald or at the Lincoln Journal-Star or at the New York Times, trying to talk to people in the IC and get the maximum amount of information that they possibly can out of them to inform the public. It is not the burden of an American journalist to discern whether or not the member of the IC is leaking information that might be classified. The journalist can legitimately seek information, and it's not their job to police it. The member of the US IC that leaks classified information has broken a law.
Right.
Right?
The clear legal obligation rests on those people who are in the government in possession of intelligence, classified information. It's not the journalist's burden.
Okay.
Our focus is and should be on the leakers, not those that are obtaining it as part of legitimate news gathering.
So I want to hear this part one more time, and I know that the chairman has indulged me. I'm at and past time, but the American journalist who's seeking this information differs from Assange and WikíLeaks how?
In that there's at least a portion, and people can argue that maybe this conduct WikíLeaks has engaged in the past that's closer to regular news gathering, but in my view, a huge portion of WikíLeaks' activities has nothing to do with legitimate news gathering, informing the public, commenting on important public controversies, but is simply about releasing classified information to damage the United States of America. And people sometimes get cynical about journalists. American journalists do not do that. They will almost always call us before they publish classified information and say, is there anything about this that's going to put lives in danger, that's going to jeopardize government people, military people, or innocent civilians anywhere in the world, and then work with us to try and accomplish their important First Amendment goals while safeguarding those interests. This activity I'm talking about, WikíLeaks, involves no such considerations whatsoever. It's what I said to intelligence porn. Just push it out in order to damage.
Thank you.
That was stunningly Orwellian. Do you understand what he said there and the gravity of this? He's admitting, yeah, no, what the journalists do is they come to us and they ask, is it okay if we print this? Whoa, 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 whoa. That means they are not free to publish whatever they want. Because then you could tell them, you can't publish that, you can't publish that, you can't publish that, you can't publish that. Which means the government is controlling the establishment media. Oh my God, that's such an incredible admission, man. Because if you had asked me before I saw this clip, I would have said, no, come on. I would have told you the way the establishment corporate media functions is it's basically self-censorship. That the CEOs and the people at the top of the various companies, they only hire people who they know are going to parrot the line, but they don't have to micromanage and censor them because they hire the Wolf Blitzers and they hire the Don Lemons who aren't going to rock the boat anyway. But apparently I'm wrong. Apparently, you have the FBI, the government, telling so-called journalists, but now we know they're not journalists, they're PR people for the government. We have the FBI and the government telling them, no, don't run that, we don't like that. Don't run that, we don't like that. You can run that, we do like that. Well, that means we have state media. That means that mainstream media, establishment media, corporate media, they're only running with what the government wants them to run. Gee, I wonder if the government is going to be objective about what the press should be allowed to run and what they shouldn't be allowed to run. No! They're only going to tell them to run things that portray them in a positive light. which is why, lo and behold, anytime the CIA, the FBI, or anybody in the government, the State Department, wherever, anytime they say something, it is reported in the corporate media as if it is fact. We heard from an anonymous official with inside the FBI, X, Y, and Z. Fill in the blank with whatever propaganda. WikiLeaks is damaging U.S. national security. But that's state media. That's propaganda. They just control the media. That's unbelievable what they just admitted there. And then look at the flip side. They said about WikiLeaks, yeah, they're just leaking information to damage the United States. You do realize that would have to be proven, correct? You do realize that that is a very incendiary claim you just made. That's an accusation, son. That's you saying, yeah, like WikiLeaks, Assange, he is working for foreign governments in an attempt to try to bring down and discredit the U.S. government. But those connections have not been created. You haven't proven those. And in fact, to this day, WikiLeaks swears up and down, no, we did not get the information for the DNC email leaks from the Russian government. The only people who are saying we did are who? Our intelligence agencies. Our intelligence agencies say, yep, they're working with Putin. Never proved it, never any evidence. And Assange says, no, that's not where we got the information. We have a specific source, and that is not who it was. It was not the Russian government. Now, furthermore, he argues WikiLeaks, quote, does not do legitimate news gathering and does not inform the public. He's just talking out of his ass at this point. They don't do legitimate news gathering and informing the public. Was it legitimate news gathering when they found out that our military was bombing civilians in Iraq, and then they would circle around and bomb the first responders, and then the people who did the bombing of civilians, in fact, it was media people and then an ambulance afterwards, that they laughed about it. They did it and then they laughed about it. That wasn't legitimate news gathering when Chelsea Manning released that. And by the way, those people who committed murder, who actually did terrorism, they killed innocent people for a political purpose, the people in our military, were they brought up on charges? No. None of them even saw the inside of a courtroom. Never mind a jail cell or prison cell. So they get away with it. Chelsea Manning went to jail, though, right? So that is legitimate news. That's real news. That's real news. Fake news is everything the establishment corporate media went with right up in the lead up to the Iraq War. That's fake news. Oh, Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. Oh my God, they're going to attack. They're doing it in Syria now. You had the media talking about, Brian Williams, the beauty of our missiles. Isn't it so beautiful? So beautiful when we watch weapons that are going to go kill people. Fareed Zakaria, Trump became president today by bombing, the Syrian government, even though they weren't about to attack us. There's your there's your media and your news, which is not informing the public and isn't legitimate news gathering. CNBC, when they are supposedly financial experts, business experts on that channel, and across the board they said, nothing to worry about, there's not going to be a recession. And then we had the Great Recession and the subprime mortgage crisis. That's not legitimate news gathering or informing the public. The establishment media, the corporate media, they don't do legitimate news gathering and they don't inform the public. WikiLeaks does nothing but inform the public. All they did was release Hillary Clinton's own words, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Donna Brazile, the DNC's own words. And what did we find out? They are incredibly corrupt. Donna Brazile leaking questions to Hillary Clinton before debates, Debbie Wasserman Schultz pressuring MSNBC hosts and saying, if you don't treat us well, I'm going to go to your boss. Trying to change the voting times in pro-Bernie districts, trying to hide the debates. Hillary saying there's bigotry and oppression against the rich in America and saying I want totally open trade borders, saying I have a public position and a private position and they should be different. So they release Hillary's own words. They show you how the sausage is made in Washington, D.C. and how corrupt they are. And then James Comey turns around and says, oh no, that's not informing the public. That's not legitimate news gathering. It's intelligence porn. Let me explain something to you, Jim. The oldest trick in the book that the government does is declare anything and everything that's embarrassing, that exposes a bad job the government has done, declare it top secret, classified, and tuck it away. So that's what, like the Pentagon Papers. The Pentagon Papers were released and we learned that the U.S. military was napalming and using Agent Orange on innocent civilians in Vietnam, just massacring villages. So we released the Pentagon Papers and learned that, and what was the argument the government made? Oh, classified information, how dare you? This is intelligence porn. You're not allowed to do this. This isn't legitimate news. This isn't informing the public. That is exactly what it is. And every time you stumble across a real story, that's going to be the response from the government. Now, don't get me wrong. Are there some things that should be classified? Of course. Nobody's arguing against all, classified top secret information. You can't have the fucking nuclear launch codes get leaked and then they say, this is legitimate news. No, then that would be a crime. Then that's a crime. You can't have them leak the position of our troops on the battlefield right now, which, by the way, Geraldo did once live on TV. You can't have them do that. Yes, we all agree. Top secret, classified. But when you have informing the public about corruption, when you have showing people war crimes that we committed, the government committed with our money in our name, that is nothing but legitimate news gathering and informing the public, but you don't want to include WikíLeaks in that because they expose you for the corrupt savages that you are. So that was a stunningly anti-First Amendment back and forth I just saw right there. It's pathetic, and yes, it's un-American. I'm calling you un-American, James Comey. I'm calling you un-American, Ben Sass, or Sassy, whatever the fuck your name is. Anybody in the corporate media, anybody in the establishment, anybody who would not defend WikíLeaks, yes, you're part of the problem. It's so funny. We've had in Washington recently with the White House Correspondents' Dinner and all these corporate journalists, oh, First Amendment, freedom of the press. Everybody's showing, oh, freedom of the press. They got mad at Trump because Trump is against the First Amendment and cracking down on a free press, which is true, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not exonerating him. He sued Bill Maher over a joke. This guy's massively against freedom of speech and freedom of the press. But they're patting themselves on the back like, yes, us establishment media people care so much about freedom. Anyway, prosecute WikíLeaks. You don't care about freedom. If you did, you would be defending WikíLeaks because they're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, CNN. They're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Shame on all of you who don't immediately rush to the defense of WikíLeaks.